The maze of Xonthal's tower provides us with a wacky, fantastical experience that I would like to see more in my games. The spirit of this large puzzle reminds me of old, cheesy fantasy movies, or at least classical AD&D adventures. I like it so much that I reused it in other games, and I will do so again. If you watch this and you're never gonna run Tyranny of Dragons because of its messy storyline, it's locations like this that makes this book worth grabbing. Or maybe your group fell apart halfway through. Xonthal's tower would make a nice one-shot. Just remove the cultists and insert your own simple plot. Before throwing your players inside of this maze, close your eyes and try to imagine the entrance and then the maze itself. Does the air smell of flowers, rain? Is it unnaturally hot in here? What mood is the sky in today? Are the hedge walls neatly trimmed, or do they look ruffled and dying? What about the tower? Is it glooming over the maze menacingly, or is its top barely seen above the hedge? I like to make an emphasis on the magic of this place, how time almost stands still inside, maybe to the point when it seems like it's hard to breathe. Once we set up the mood, let's move on to the mechanics. So the puzzle itself is in the sundial, the first location the players find themselves after entering the maze. The shadow it casts is obviously unnatural, as it points in a different direction from the players' shadows. During the course of this complex encounter, the players will need to guess the right path, judging by the shadows cast by the sundial. Wrong guesses will lead the party into one of the 6 locations in the order of your choosing, with some sort of challenge or another. The solution to the first shadow is absolutely straightforward, and following the shadow will lead to the sundial again, except with a different shadow situation. The adventure has a little sidebar on splitting the party, so you can follow these guidelines, but the specifics are up to you. For instance, I would make it so that the party can be at different sundials at once, although it can obviously complicate the situation. So with each new iteration, the solutions become less and less obvious, and I saw rage posts on Reddit with people complaining about this illogical puzzle, because some solutions really seem to lack logic, and that's even addressed in the text, saying that Xonthal did it on purpose. Okay, but you should keep in mind the archetypes of your players. My original party consisted of my wife and 2 other players. Now, my wife is very smart, and she loves puzzles, and you could see how focused she was looking for patterns, and every time she failed, she analyzed it and figured it out. So she beat it pretty easily, but then again, she's a genius. So if you have a similar player in your group, they're gonna be fine. The 2 remaining players, on the other hand, were a different story altogether. One of them just practically gave up and decided to wait it out. Another one was simulating brain activity, but every time he said, okay, let's go this way, and my wife asked him why, he just said, well, because the other one didn't work. So there was absolutely no logic in his decisions, and he didn't see the logic in my wife's way of thinking, which was the correct one. It came to the point where he and the other girl left my wife behind and went the other way. Meanwhile, she made it to the tower, and those guys almost got eaten by the carnivorous plants. What I'm saying is, if your party is all like those 2 guys, you are at risk of dragging this encounter into 4 hours of suffering. It's just that some players don't like puzzles. Just last weekend I ran a different game with a fairly simple puzzle for 2 different guys, and all they did was just blindingly trying every combination, failing and fighting hordes of undead every time they failed. When they got tired, you would think they would stop for a moment and try to figure it out. No! One guy said, hey, what if we break this thing? So if it sounds awfully familiar to you, first of all, I feel you, bro. And second, think of some ways to avoid this, maybe prepare some hints for investigation checks, or just simplify some of the shadow patterns. If the wrong path is chosen, the party is effectively trapped in one of the 6 locations, and the only way to get back is to acquire a gemstone that will lead them back to the sundial to be able to try again. One of the locations is the Jewel Pool. The guarded gemstone hovers above the center of the pool. 4 jewels guard the pool and the gem, and will try to drown anyone who tries to enter the pool or touch the stone. The jewels can be distracted by magic items thrown at them. The players can be hinted at this using arcana checks, revealing the monster's sense magic ability perhaps, and some history information from the monster manual. Alternatively, you can describe a jewel trying to take away a magic item right from the PC's hand. Other than that, the party can be potentially as high as level 13 in this chapter, and 4 monsters with a CR of 4 can hardly be a problem. But before throwing more monsters at them, consider the fact that you don't know how much longer they will stay in the maze, and that long rests are impossible here. The bottom of the pool holds a bunch of magic items, but it's 50 feet deep, exceeding the range of the detect magic spell, which is 30 feet. So if somebody casts it, consider having a Chul try to drown that character first, giving them a chance to discover the treasure, which by the way includes potions of healing, which by the way you might want to upgrade to the potions of greater healing or even superior. The next location is the Cyclopes Pasture. I like the fact that everything here is frozen in time until the characters advance into the area. One of the Cyclopes throws a boulder 120 feet across the field and expects the characters to beat his record. The Cyclops can even explain the rules of this game, if any of the characters understands the giant language. Killing the Cyclopes is meaningless, and the gem can only be obtained by winning the contest, upon which the first boulder splits in half, revealing the needed gemstone. The rules suggest that the boulder flies at least part of the distance. At level 13 it is highly possible that the characters have access to magic or abilities that will allow that to happen, but I suggest that you take a close look at the characters' sheets and see if they indeed have the means to accomplish the task, otherwise you might want to come up with alternative solutions to the problem. Perhaps a magic item or a spell that was useless for quite a while can now be successfully utilized. The Carnivorous Garden is a 10 feet wide path with a fountain in the middle. A large flower grows to the north and south of each square of the path, except for the square with the fountain. The flowers use the statistics of an Odiog, except they have speed 0 and they're plants. I guess the fountain is supposed to be the safe place, but keep in mind that the Odiog's tentacle attack has a 10 feet reach, which makes every square in this location reachable for at least one flower, including the fountain. The attack also grapples the creature, which can drive this encounter downhill for the party pretty quickly. A pearl needed to get back to the sundial is hidden in each plant, but after killing one, the party still needs to avoid all the tentacle attacks and escape the garden. I suggest that you use a grid for this encounter, because measuring all the attack radiuses can easily become very confusing. Pagoda is a very atmospheric encounter involving an evil genie, a Dao. The Dao is disguised in a human form and without any words invites the party to join his tea ceremony, or so it seems. The tea turns out to be Drake's Wort leaves, a poisonous herb, and the tea kettle, Dao's magic jar. He uses a wall of stone to trap the party inside and make them choke on the vapors, while he hides inside of a boulder using his Earth Glide ability. Once they decide to attack the tea kettle with the face of a Dao on it, which seems like a fairly possible thought for an average D&D player, the Dao attacks, bringing his walls of stone down. This encounter seems like it might be the most challenging, but once the kettle is broken and the gem that was inside the whole time is acquired, the party can just leave. The next location on the list is the Statue Gallery. The statues are actually suits of armor, 2 of which spring to life a few moments after the party gets here, and 2 more are activated each time one of the armor suits is destroyed. This is a never-ending process as the armor reassembles itself again and again, but each one has a 1 in 6 chances of dropping a gemstone. Again, this encounter carries a very old-school vibe in my opinion, like those classic dungeon crawl computer installments of D&D, and for some reason I love it when encounters involve random elements to them, even as simple and straightforward as this one. Though depending on how much your party enjoys combat, you might want to consider adding a +1 to the roll with each new kill, and giving the gemstone on the roll of 6 or higher. The final location provided by the adventure is the Gorgon Maze. There's a map of this maze within a maze, and I'm not sure how to use it exactly unless you actually use a grid. But you can totally rely upon the narrative itself if you wish so. Just listen to your players and use the labyrinth simply to feed their imagination and play upon the suspense. Let them explore the maze for a minute while you describe an unsettling distant noise that ranges from nervous bestial breathing to a distant stomping of hooves. Let their imagination scare them a little bit. No need to drag the moment for too long. Once you feel like it, unleash the Gorgon upon them. Perhaps they will get ready to meet their unknown foe from up ahead the corridor, when it will suddenly trample through the hedge wall and just and suddenly disappear on the other side. You get the idea. All in all, when the Gorgon uses its petrifying breath, the gemstone crystallizes from it, and the trick is to pick it up as quickly as possible before it disappears, upon which the party might hear a rustling of leaves as the outer hedge wall divides itself, providing the way out of the labyrinth. Hopefully these 6 locations are enough for the party to figure out the sundial puzzle I know it was for my party. But if you feel like it, you can expand the list by designing your own challenges. You can find a whole bunch of additional homebrew locations if you browse the internet for a minute, but I encourage you to create something of your own. Maybe there's a monster in the manual that you always wished to run, but it would never fit any of your adventures. Well, this might be just the right place to build an entire encounter revolving around that guy. Good luck, and be sure to check out what's coming next on Lutes&Dice. I feel like talking about the village of Xonthal's Tower. And of course, the finale of Tyranny of Dragons is just around the corner. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time.